Hello and welcome along to the VMTV Rugby Pod, heading into week 3 of the autumn. Alan Quinlan and Matt Williams, as ever, always join me. Alan, firstly, a win against Argentina, a great start, but not quite probably the performance Andy Farrell would have wanted to hit the heights. I know we have just seen the Irish team announced for this weekend, but touched just last week against the Argies, a win. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought they played really well in the first half. Lots of positives. If Tyke Burns scores that try, it's 4 tries in the first half. And I think they showed a lot of sharpness, a lot of energy, way more accuracy in that first half. So I think, it was even missing out on that try with Tyke Burns, which he didn't get the grounding. I think overall it was a very pleasing first half. There was still some errors and some penalties in there that could be avoided. But overall, I thought they started the game really well, and I thought they'd kick on in the second half. Argentina are a good side. You're not going to just continue that pattern for the whole game. I think they were definitely going to come out firing. But the thing with Ireland is, even with their dominance in that first half, Argentina still stayed in touch with some penalties, and that gave them hope coming out at half time. And Matt will know this as a coach. Any coach is saying if you're behind at half time, it's so important to get the first score and start that second half really well. And Argentina were brilliant at that, and they dominated Ireland probably for 20 minutes. Got a brilliant try from Juan Cruz Malia, and Ireland were hanging on, and they looked ragged at times and started forcing things a little bit, and the level of performance dropped. So that was probably the frustrating thing for them. So, there's no alarm bells yet. I think it's and there shouldn't be. I think is there worries and concerns there? Yes, a few, but I think if they can manoeuvre their way through this weekend and get a result, and then finish the last weekend with a positive result against Australia, it'll be seen as a decent November series. But there's a few concerns and there are a few repetitive things. 31 missed tackles is way too much for any international team, and 13 penalties again, something again that we don't relate to this Irish team. So a lot of the stuff that's happening is kind of self-inflicted, and you could argue there's a little bit of a zip or something missing out of this team, and they're kind of navigating the way through a tricky period.
Matt, that spark, do you feel it's missing too much for your liking, or is it not that much of a concern? Also, the discipline, where's that come from? Ireland over the last couple of years have been super, but the penalty count is pretty high for this team, isn't it?
Yeah, 26 penalties in 2 weeks, Stu. And the Allen summation is absolutely spot on. And I agree, I'm not super concerned about where the team is right now, because I just don't think any team can hold the level of performance at their maximum for, year after year without some form of dip. And, they've got a slight dip at the moment. There's no two ways about that. But there's also reasons for that. The departure of Sexton still lingers on this team. We'll come to Jack Crowley later on. I thought Jack played really quite well for the majority of the time he was on the field. There's only 1 or 2 errors, but certainly in the first half, he scored a great try, always makes his tackles. As I always say about Jack, he does the hard things really, really well. And it's just some of those other small errors that he's got in him that he needs to eliminate. But generally speaking, the tries that Ireland scored were beautifully crafted and beautifully executed. If all 3 of those first half tries, and it could have been 4 if Tyke Burns had got that ball down, but we've got to give the Argentinians credit there for a great tackle on him. But again, I think it's got to say, it's like Quinny put out. You play New Zealand 1 week and Argentina the next. These are 2 quality teams, and you're not going to have it all your own way. And Ireland, performed well against New Zealand, and New Zealand came at them and performed better. And Argentina put in a really solid second half. And the momentum, as Alan pointed out, when that score straight after half time, if Ireland had got that first score, they may very well have gone away with that game easily. But when Argentina put on what was equally an excellently crafted try, if you watch that try from the high behind camera, as we were fortunate to do when we were on the TV, and you see the Argentinians sweeping from the left-hand side, their left-hand side, to the right with all these players in motion, and then other players running hard lines back at the ball. They asked a whole lot of questions of that Irish defence that has been pretty solid, and was only the only time in the game where Gary Ringrose didn't make what was an excellent game defensively. He missed a tackle on his inside shoulder. And Argentina took a great try. And that shifts the momentum in the game. But against you, I think you've got to come back. At international level at the moment, the top 8, 10 teams, there's nothing between them, and they're all beating each other, and it's hard to pick. And teams aren't dominating each other massively in those top 8. They're getting wins. Obviously, that happens. But look at France and New Zealand. Even the Springboks against the English wasn't a total whitewash. The English made them work very, very hard. So, yeah, I'm not panicking, but especially around that 10 role, there seems to be some unease within the Irish camp, and I don't know if it's totally justified about Crowley. I think he's doing a lot better than a lot of people suggest.
Alan, moving on to this Saturday against Fiji. Team has just come in. A couple of debutants, Gus McCarthy, Cormac Izuchukwu, and then Sam Prendergast after his 20 minutes debut last Friday night. Impressed he gets a first shot at 10. Jacob Stockdale comes in on the wing, so an opportunity for him as well, who's been out sort of in the wilderness. Yes, he's been in squads, but this is a shot you would have thought have to take. But your summation of this team, it actually is a big afternoon for a lot of that 23, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. I think is it 7 changes in one positional with Henshaw moving from 12 to 13. It's still a good team, very good team on paper, and an exciting team. Izuchukwu going in there is a great opportunity for him. Sam Prendergast starting his first game. Gus McCarthy starting as well is a great boost for him. Really good players. They'll certainly bring a bit of energy here to this team. Jacob Stockdale getting back on the wing. He deserves a crack. He's got to perform, I think. He's been out of this group and team for a couple of years now, and he still has that quality, and you just want him to show it at the weekend. Jamie Osborne at full back. We saw what he did in South Africa, and even coming on against New Zealand as well, what kind of a player and the quality that he brings. So yeah, it's a good team. There's a lot of changes. People probably
did you think there'd be as many, Alan? Did you see any other envisage any other changes?
I saw 4 or 5. Of course, you can argue and say Cian Prendergast could have started. McCluskey's in the squad. He could have started at 12. You could have put Clarkson in there for first start as well. So you can't force too many. And if there's 9 or 10 changes in the team, it's a risky one. But I think he'll want to win the game. And they're playing against a side that are very, very dangerous in counter-attack, and if you give them time and space, they can hurt any team at any level. So he'll want a performance, and I think there's enough of changes in the team really to give opportunities, and obviously Andy Farrell will be hoping that Ireland are in a good position that they can bring players off the bench and they can make an impact. So yeah, plenty of changes, plenty of faces couple of new faces and a couple that are not regular starters that have a real point to prove as well.
Matt, let's talk Irish fly half situation. Sam Prendergast, the hype train's behind him. Quality asset, obviously. Still so much to learn and so much to grow. But this has been given the 10 jersey on Saturday. Frawley's coming back in the bench. Jack Crowley steps out, I presume rested. You maybe thought Frawley would start and Prendergast would come off the bench once more. Is that fair enough to say? But the fact he's starting so soon at 21, yes, he will have thought he was ready, but what a chance to really prove himself again, Matt.
Yeah, Stu, I've said all along, I thought the coaches, once they selected the 3 10s, had a plan for those 10s. And this was what I thought would happen, but I didn't think Prendergast would start. I thought Frawley would start, Prendergast would be on the bench. And I did believe they'd rest Crowley for this game. And I don't believe that is in any way a punishment. Like last week, I wasn't buying into the theory that Frawley was punished either. I think, you as a coach, you've got to give players time. And especially in this position when we've lost Sexton, the question is, well, what happens if Crowley gets injured? And if Crowley's injured and they're saying, well, it's not Ross Byrne anymore, and it's not the other guys around the traps, Billy Byrne from the north and so on, and we believe Prendergast is the next cab off the rank, you've got to give the kid time, because in the Six Nations, if you're playing England and the week before someone gets hurt at training, he's got to step up. So it's one of these ones you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't as a coach. And people read far too much into it at times. The game is the great educator, and you've got to give these players time, because the international game is different to the club game. And it's really hard to put words into it for the people out there. But everyone who plays or coaches knows that. It's faster. You get less time to make your decisions. The contact is stronger. It's harder. The skills of the opposition are far better. The noise of the crowd, the intensity, the whole environment, the build-up, the media, everything is in a different league to what you're used to. And you have to learn to cope with that. Now, I thought as a 10, as a prop or a back rower or a winger, it's hard. For a 10 where you're making the decisions and you're touching the ball so often and you've got to tell people what to do and guide people around, that is so difficult. And I thought young Prendergast did an excellent job when he came off the bench last week. I didn't think it was special. I thought it was competent, which is all we would want from the young man. All we would want. He took the ball to a line and did a double pump on one of his first plays, showed confidence, showed finesse, made some tackles. Good on the young man. What we are not seeing is what Andy Farrell and his staff see, which is every day at training. So they wouldn't put the young man in if they didn't believe he was ready. And then you're also saying there's psychology at play here too. There's psychology at play. He's saying to Frawley, have a look over your shoulder, mate. You got a young buck chasing you. He might even be in front of you. I'm going to give you 20 or 30 minutes at the end. Show us what you got. So all of a sudden, Frawley, who thinks, oh, well, it's me and Jack. It's not just me and Jack. There's three of us in this relationship now, and one of us is going to miss out. So that's you're playing mind games. You want competition. And so I think it's Farrell's done a very good job with the selection. We have the blood. This team needs new blood coming through somewhere. I personally think Ryan Baird is pushing very, very hard to start next week against Australia. There's interesting selections in the second row, because if Baird starts, one of the second rowers has to go, including Byrne. Tyke Byrne has moved into the second row there. So they're saying, well, is that our best combination? Is McCarthy and Byrne our best combination, with McCarthy and Ryan? So there's all these things at play. But I think that is a very good selection. And let me also assure everyone out there that the giant Fijian centres, and, mate, they are big, big dudes, they are coming down Channel 1 at the guy called Prendergast in the first 20 minutes on Saturday. And they're doing switches. They're doing
Nakalevu and two silver, Matt.
Oh, mate, and listen, I've played against a lot of Fijians. You know what hits you when that Fijian hits you. I can tell you. So he's going to have his work cut out, and we're going to know a lot more about him. But somewhere along this process, people are going to grab the opportunity. But if I can come back, and I know Quinny wants to talk about it, and I'll let him do it. Don't write off Crowley, because I think that's wrong. Crowley's kicking game is the only part of his game that I'm critical of. And people think I don't like him. It's just not true. I think his kicking game needs to improve, and his percentages off the tee need to improve. I keep saying the hard parts of the game, the defence and the attack, he's the best one we got by a mile. He's just got to sort out what should be the easier parts, which is the kicking game. And he just hasn't mastered that since he's come in. We're seeing the same errors. But there's no way we should be discarding Crowley. I find that talk absolutely without foundation.
Alan, do we not appreciate Jack Crowley and his 17-18 cap so far as much as we should? But also, did you think he'd be further along in his progression than he is, and actually further away from his competitors, if that makes sense? more in control of the 10 jersey than he seems to be?
Yeah, there's two good questions there. He's still only a young fella. He's 24. You can't forget that. When Johnny Sexton was 24, he wasn't a finished article. When Ronan O'Gara was. So it takes time. It's a really pressurised position. He has all the fundamentals to be, a world-class 10. And, the subtle parts of his game, like Matt said, some of the kicking, decision-making. I think he's over-analytical of himself, probably, and he's probably hard on himself. I've heard that about him, that he's diligent around analysing and understanding his mistakes. He probably puts a lot of pressure on himself, and he's a top quality player. So I think he'd be further down the road. I think I've been incredibly pleased with Jack Crowley. It's a position that, even though from me playing in a back row, anytime you ever play against any team, any back, you want to get your back row going at the 10s, try and test them, physically go after them, and the same with 12s. Matt has said it to us over, Makalevo, they'll try and go after Sam Prendergast. So there's a lot of pressure, a lot of decision making for a 10. Handle the ball 70 or 80 times on average in a game. And is there going to be a couple of imperfections? Yeah, possibly. So it's I just think Jack Crowley he's the most physical 10 we have. He can run hard with the ball. He's a great defender. He's someone who turns ball over at the breakdown, and that's stuff that it's hard to develop. I think the other stuff that Matt was referencing, he just needs to get a little bit better on some stuff. But I just didn't like the narrative the last two matches, and I'm not pointing the finger at anybody and saying that people are maybe it's
too harsh on him, Alan, for you. Too harsh.
Do you know
bit
what?
Too strong.
I just think him as the player is probably hearing and feeling this as well. He looks a little bit disappointed and coming off the field. So I just think it's important that we harness the quality we have in him. He can play 12 as well. He's a brilliant player that you can, there's every chance we're going to see a Sam Prendergast, Jack Crowley playing together for Ireland in the years to come. Crowley can play 12. He's a great, skillful footballer. He's a good distributor. So I'm just concerned that we would create this narrative. There was headlines of some of the weekend papers. It's the Prendergast era. This guy's played 8 games. He started in Marseille in start of February. He didn't have his perfect performance, but he was brilliant in a lot of stuff he did. He sends Ty Byrne on a front door pass for a try. His running ability in that game, his defence was outstanding. So there's a lot of scrutiny in a 10. When I played as a back row, you can get away with a mistake here and there. You don't have to kick. You don't have to control.
But that is the position, Alan. Like that just is it. It always has been.
But he's
Sexton, O'Gara, they got slammed as well. But also when they were good, they got praised, and rightly so.
Yeah. But I just think it's just important to say we're lucky we have someone like Sam Prendergast. We're lucky to have Kieran Frawley, but we're also very lucky to have Jack Crowley.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a really top quality international when he does the stuff well. Obviously, there's a little bit of inaccuracies at times in his kicking, and I think he tries to force it a little bit. But maybe that will come with some composure. Sam Prendergast, him getting a chance this weekend is great for him because he's a natural talent as well. Is he as physical as Jack Crowley? No. Can he defend like him? Probably not. But most out halves couldn't tackle anyone. I played with them, and they all had that issue of defensively. Crowley bucks the trend. He's kind of like an Owen Farrell, isn't he? And a Johnny Sexton, who they nearly want guys to run at them. Crowley is like that, so we're lucky to have him. I'd just be concerned that we wouldn't write this guy off. We need to need to make sure that we harness his talent as well. But it's a good position because if you have an iconic figure like Johnny Sexton going, and it's similarities with England with Owen Farrell and Marcus Smith now stepping up. George Ford and Owen Farrell were there for so long. Marcus Smith is this incredible talent for England, but there's imperfections in what he does. His control of a game. He's a natural talent to run, catch, pass, attack. Sometimes, you need to close out games and things like that. So Crowley still is a top player, and I'm sure he'll be back in the mix There's a big test next week. Sam Prendergast could go brilliantly, and maybe he might put the pressure on. So the pressure is not a bad thing, but I just think from the outside, I just wouldn't like that narrative going around that Jack Crowley and it's a new era of Sam Prendergast.
You took the words out of my mouth there. I'm going to stir it all up there and chuck to you, Matt, because you'll enjoy this. Why not? Sam Prendergast gets man of the match. Sure, why wouldn't he? Who starts against Australia?
Well, before I answer that, I just want to tell
Ryan you can't sit on the fence.
I want to tell Ryan O'Gara that it was Alan Quinlan that criticised his defence, not me. So Rog can text you, not me. Rog, I thought you were a great defender.
I'd say he listens into this one, Matt Sweeter.
I don't want to get
all I can say in his defence, he never shirked the responsibility of making a tackle.
You're the one who said it, not me.
He never jumped out of the way.
Listen, if Prendergast has a great game, I really hope the young man does. No one would wish him anything else but a great game. And it'll be a wonderful day for his family with his brother on the bench. You know, both of them could be on the field at the same time. Like, wow, what a wonderful day. So we all hope he goes well. I'd be astounded if Crowley doesn't start against Australia. I'd be absolutely astounded. Because everything Alan said is true. You know, the guy's not perfect. Nor should he be, nor should we expect him to be. It is the toughest position in the game to play. You are asked to do so many things, but you have to learn your craft by doing it. Don't learn your craft just on the training field. You have to get out and do it. And I would agree that Jack looks a little stressed, and I really, hope he's not listening to the podcast, but if he does.
But the first half, Matt, he took it in control. The drop goal was outstanding, and the try, so much good about that.
That's exactly what I said, Stu. Like, his first half was absolutely superb. And compared to when his game against New Zealand, which wasn't happy. But if we compare that to Damien McKenzie has had some poor games since Bowden Barrett left as well. And McKenzie's taken over the 10 jersey. He's been excellent at Super Rugby, but not excellent at international level. And McKenzie was excellent the other week. We heard him say before the game, I need to organise the team or general the team far better than I have been doing. And that's what he did. And so McKenzie has a lot more...
50 caps. I know some of them at 15, but he's been around that environment for a lot longer.
That's exactly what I mean. My Jack Crowley is only... He's not even, really, he's just in 12 months into his journey. In reality, there were some other little cameos. But let's just, that number of games. You need 20 to 25 caps before you feel comfortable in the environment. So, mate, I would be absolutely astounded, no matter what Prendergast does, if Crowley doesn't start. And, I think the way the Australians have played, they've got to negotiate Scotland, of course, but the way the Australians have played, which as an Australian has been absolutely delightful. It has been so good for our game in Australia. And I'm not talking about winning trophies. The survival of the game in Australia has just been wonderful to have some good news with the Wallabies playing the way they have. But they are showing that you're going to have to take them pretty seriously. So I thought the Fijian game might be the harder game between Australia and Fiji, the way the Australians were playing. But on this tour, and probably the two New Zealand games, even though they didn't win them, they showed they're capable of some really quality rugby under Joe Schmidt. And on tour, they've done that a little bit more. So I think there's just no doubt that against Australia, it's going to be the number one team that Andy Farrell can put together, and that's going to be the basis of the team that will start the Six Nations against England at home. So that's going to be the dress rehearsal, if you like, a couple of months out. So and Crowley, no matter what Prendergast does, and I want him to do well, I want Frawley to do well. You don't want any of these young men to fail, and you want competition. It will then decide what do you do about the bench. I think it's Crowley's jersey, but it's what happens with the bench. That is a question and a debate that we might have.
Alan, a lot's been made about the discipline and the line-out. But just on looking from my eye, the Irish attack maybe hasn't, I don't think, looked as slick as it was in South Africa or in the Six Nations. Fair enough point?
Yeah, it is. And
what would you put that down to? Yes, they haven't played in a couple of months, but they played 2 games now. Even last week, yes, they scored a good couple of tries, line-outs and things. But just phase play and getting in the pods and the right positions between forwards and backs, what do you think is just not right? The combinations, or how's that unfolding in your eyes?
There's a little mixture of everything here. A little bit of rustiness, confidence, the opposition, what they're doing and the way they're analysing. So if you're analysing Ireland, and I've said this for a couple of years, you can see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and it's so difficult to stop, because if you shoot out of the line as a defender and this pass goes out the back and you get your feet wrong, Ireland have gone around you, and they have so many. Their cohesion in their passing is really accurate. We've seen some inaccuracies in the passing, the ball being in the air too long at times. But the common denominator is, in the first couple of games, the opposition have gone after their source. So the source is their set piece.
But did the opposition not do that over the last couple of years as well?
No. Yeah, they did, but Ireland coped better because they probably, when you're analysing the opposition, again, with rugby, Stuart, it's the basics of, let's attack their line-out, let's go after their scrum, let's win the breakdown battle. Every team says that. But sometimes you don't get that edge. And I think we've lost that little bit of edge. So maybe that's a mental approach. Sometimes maybe that's a hunger, an expectancy that this will happen naturally. Ireland's breakdown has been messy at times. We're turning the ball over then a lot. So with 21 handing errors against New Zealand. So if you're a defender in New Zealand, at no time are you getting absolute stress fatigue, because it's 3 or 4 phases and then it's a knock-on or it's a turnover and you can walk to the next run, then you go up, you get a penalty, you kick 3 points. So there's some obvious stuff there. So yes, inaccuracies, rustiness, and the opposition really. You look at the second half last week, Ireland were so much on the front foot in attack last week to watch, and I saw a little bit of that zip back, that confidence in attack. As I said, who scores 4 tries in an international test against a very good Argentina team, and it should have been 4? That's a brilliant return for a coach at half time. If you go out and score 4 tries in the first half, the second half is the problem. Argentina recalibrate, they identify, get more defenders in the field, don't contest as much as at the breakdown, and let's just double and triple smash Ireland. And they did that so well. So even when Ireland turned around that second half and had a lot of possession and were trying to attack and they were up in that territorial zone, or the green zone, Argentina came up with some big defensive hits, and a lot of them were behind the gain line for Ireland. So then it's very difficult to get your attack going when you're losing those collisions behind the gain line. So it was a game of 2 halves, really. Ireland were really brilliant in the first half. Not perfect, but really energetic, accurate, some great tries. Looked like they could really pull away, but they still had that potential to make a mistake, give away some penalties, and be a little bit inaccurate. So it's just about, as a coach, and Matt will know this as a coach, for me as a player, you try and fix it, you try and find the positives. The discipline is a decision at times, sometimes 50-50 decisions. Do I go for it? And we've seen a couple of stupid ones. We've seen a couple of unlucky ones. And it's ironic that it was 13 penalties again, but it is hurting them. It kept Argentina in touching distance the other night, but it also won the game for New Zealand, So I think, and are they having a little dip? So there's loads of little factors here. But what would you do as a coach here, as a player? You trying to go back to the basics, get that hunger, that aggression, that accuracy around the breakdown and your set piece, and then you can try and play and see what's in front of you sometimes. So teams going after their source, they got some reward. New Zealand got reward for it, stealing a few lineouts, pressure at the breakdown. But Ireland did that to New Zealand early in the game, so it does have a factor. It does make a big difference. Argentina in the second half, they won the collisions with impact tackles, and they unsettled Ireland. So that's the intrigue of top teams when they play together. And I genuinely think, maybe I think about myself, are we expecting too much here? Are we expecting this sublime, perfect performance every time? The standards are high, but again, we don't have to go back too far. Well, we do have to go back a good bit now to to realise where we're at. This team has done remarkably well the last few years, and we've seen some brilliant performances. Still, the big disappointment is the World Cup, and we will see a change of the guard and some personnel change in the next period of time. But overall, I don't think it's panic mode. I still think it'd be great to get more new players in. We see a few changes in this game, but they have to be a bit better themselves. And I think let's hope they do that and they can turn it around a little bit. But the opposition, Ireland are still a big scalp now. Argentina, they sense an opportunity, and they would have been a massive scalp, Ireland, for them last Friday night. So they were very good, and Ireland just dropped that level a bit in the second half.
Matt, standards too high for you? But when you win Grand Slams and you win championships, that's what you got to expect. Even speaking to Mac Hansen this week, he said he didn't mind that because everyone just pretty much turns on their TV and expects Ireland to deliver a massive performance every week, pretty much an 80-minute performance, and we haven't seen that, so that's why they're getting criticised. As a coach, do you see anything different in attack that they aren't doing, or defensive lines are doing to stop them?
I think, Stu, that it all starts with the penalty count. When Ireland won in Chicago in 2016, with a very limited attacking plan, has to be said, under Joe Schmidt, they only gave away 4 penalties. 2 weeks in a row, they've given away 13. It's really hard to get anything flowing when you're giving away penalties like that. And some of them have been really poor.
So they're not going out to give away penalties. How can that happen so much?
Well, I just really think it's got to come down to some personal responsibility. It's the individual. It's not the coach. It's not a tactic. Joe McCarthy's yellow card last week, where he had not gone back at least 2 metres offside. So the game had gone forward. He was 2 metres offside, and he just stayed 2 metres offside. And the referee's actually calling onside 4. They've been warned the next one's a yellow card, and the ball came out of the ruck, and Joe stays offside and goes forward. That's just not smart. Henderson the week before, where he didn't release the player, Finlay Bealham not rolling away, where they're laying there, and some of that might be tactics. You want to slow them down. Everyone does that, but they just went to a degree where they gave the referees no choice. So that it's and then you get rhythm and momentum and in a game by the way you're playing, and they got momentum. How did they get? They got momentum by the lineouts from Argentinian penalties that they kicked in the corner, and they were very precise in what they did. Ireland are a precise team. And we're actually going to do it on Saturday, on the show on Saturday, to analyse Jack Crowley's first try and McCarthy's try, which when you really look at them, everyone has a role. It is based on good information on what the defence will do. And the precision of what they do where people go is absolutely wonderful to watch. But if you are imprecise in your play, you can't play a precise game by definition. And it's what they are doing is imprecise. We saw Bundyaki throw some bad passes against the Kiwis. Last week in the second half, the same thing. Kicks out in the full, passes out in the full. That imprecision takes away from confidence. So, and Quinny is right. It is minute things that add up. The 1%ers, they start adding up. 1%, 1%, and all of a sudden you're up to 10% and you've got a problem. And plus, it has to be said, the opposition are analysing Ireland like every opposition does. Especially at the line-out. The line-out is the most analysed part of the game. And it has become so complex and so difficult now at line-out time to keep those percentages where they want them to be. And at the breakdown, again, there's a little bit of imprecision. Why is that? It's really hard to put your finger on, because that's something that Paul O'Connell, as the coach, really prides himself on, and the team in the past have done so well. So the margins are small, but our expectations of this team are very high because of the way they perform. They've set their own standards. It's not us demanding standards that are unreasonable. This team has produced such good rugby over the years that we expect good rugby out of them. And when they're not doing it, they're going to get criticism, even when they win. And that's probably a good thing. Maybe 10 years ago, people wouldn't have been saying the things we're saying about a team that beats Argentina. But that's the demands now. That's the standard. I mean, look at Leinster. And Munster. Munster make the two finals of the domestic competition in a row, and they sack their coach. Leinster make the final of the European Cup 3 times and don't win it, and then they get this massive criticism. Irish rugby is expecting a lot of all its teams, and when they don't deliver, things are said. It's up. I hope it's up to people like us to put some sort of lack of emotion and more reality, so people can make their own decisions. And I also think that we don't give our opposition enough credit. I said that on TV last week. That's an Argentinian side that has earned more respect than perhaps a lot of people were giving them, and they showed that in their second half display. So you can only play as well as your opposition let you play, and Argentina didn't let them play. So you put all those things into those factors into play, and you come up with that type of performance. One thing, if you reduce the penalties and you get a little bit more precise at the breakdown, you get a very different outcome. And so I can see the fixes there, the answers are there. But then it becomes up to the individual on the field. The Joe McCarthy, and I'm sorry to pick on Joe because I thought he had an excellent game apart from that, but the Joe McCarthy point of where you're offside, the referee tells you you're offside, and you don't react and go forward, and you get a yellow card and a penalty. That's the sort of stuff that can be stopped like that. That's a personal decision.
Alan, Matt touched on giving the opposition credit. This week it's Fiji. We've already looked at the likes of Tuasova, Nakalevu, but Caleb Muntz at 10. They beat Spain last week, and then the week before, a big win against Wales. Yes, they've struggled. We knew that. 10-11 matches. Gatland under pressure. This Fiji team came to Dublin 2 years ago. It was 35-17. They're a much better side. Would that be fair to say now? They won in the World Cup, beat Australia. They're dangerous. Everyone talks about, they'll chuck it wide, but they can play through the heart as well.
Yeah, they're unpredictable, I think, and they have that incredible X-factor talent. So you're going to meet a lot of power, pace, explosive, physical players who certainly can turn it on if you give them a chance to do that. So I think Ireland have got to be very careful here and get a plan and be structured, control the tempo of the game as well, because if you kick loosely to these guys, they'll try and take you on. But on the flip side of that, if you put pressure on them and force them into mistakes and errors, you can punish them and you can find holes and gaps when you build and go to multi-phase. So incredibly dangerous side, and Wales made lots of errors and mistakes and allowed them give them time and space, and they slipped off tackles. You've got to be on the money defensively as well. So it's hard to kind of predict and know exactly where this game will go with all the changes Ireland have, with the unpredictability of playing a Fiji side. But any of the Pacific sides are going to be tested with big physical shots. But you've got to be structured, and you've got to hold on to the ball and protect it, and not turn the ball over easily, because on counter-attack they can be very dangerous. So that's probably going to be the key for Ireland this week, is be a lot more accurate, get their set piece really dominant, and maybe get more opportunity to attack the tail of the line-out and things like that, and implement some strike plays to ask questions of Fiji. But I'll go back to say it again, everybody knows this, it's not any rocket science. Tuasova, Nakalevu, those guys, Caleb Muntz at 10, you give them quality ball, they can really punish you, and their wingers are incredibly pacey as well. So it's all about shutting them down when they have the ball and not giving kind of gaps and opportunities to them. But it starts with what you do set piece and from a breakdown point of view. So it'll be an intriguing game. It's a game Ireland needs to try and get a performance. There's plenty of guys going in there now who won't be lacking any energy or any motivation to impress as well.
If we actually, just on that, Quinny, there's no last chance saloon for players in Ireland this weekend, do you think? Just quickly, or is that too harsh?
No, I don't think so. Well, I don't think so. I think there's more to gain, and I think you don't want to I would have liked to seen Tyke Furlong be involved this weekend with a view to having him back for Australia. But it's a great opportunity for Gus McCarthy, Izuchuku, as we said, Prendergast, but also a great opportunity for Jacob Stockdale. We've seen what he's done previously.
If he is a stormer, he's right back in the picture, isn't he?
Yeah, and he looks very determined this year with ball in hand.
He's had a really good start to the season.
He looks sharp as well, and everyone would love that. There's, you can bring a guy who's 6'3" and who's a big left boot as well. You can change things the way you attack, and another great option if you have him involved with Ireland again. So he has the quality and talent. The only question mark ever with Jacob was that intensity that he brings and that ability to switch off a little bit, and maybe that defensive work in the air. But he's an incredible talent, and again, it's like I'd love to see him go well. So there's lots of guys with a lot to play for. This isn't a game that anyone will be kind of written off if they don't play well. But it's a very dangerous game for Ireland because, again, we kind of assume here that it'll be a 15 or 20 point win here. Essentially, I don't know what the price is with the bookmakers, but that's probably what it's going to be around that kind of spread. You've mentioned it. They're capable of putting off big performances if they get it right, and they're so dangerous. So, it'll be intriguing to see what happens. Ireland have got to be on the money this week because for this group, it'll give a great boost to the squad if they get a good performance and a good win.
Matt, last 10 minutes, Australia starting to turn the corner. Easy win over Wales, Matt. Starting to smile, the grin a wee bit higher up in your face.
Yeah, but we certainly didn't predict the way this Australian team is playing in November from what happened in the championship. But I've got to say, mate, I'm delighted by it, and all of us are, because there's just been nothing to smile about in Australian rugby for years. And the win at Twickenham, I think I said on the show last week, Stu, I think it's probably the most important win since the '99 World Cup, because it just gives hope to the game back in Australia. It gave everyone hope, gave everyone a lift. We all felt great joy that finally we could get a win over there, and a win against a major side. I know they beat Argentina this year, but it still wasn't the same. And that win was everything. And then they came to, but it wasn't just the win; it was how they've done it. And Stu, it's hard to put your finger on it, but Joseph Swalihi, the 13 that has come from rugby league, is an absolute star. And he was a rugby. I said in the show last week, played for the King's School, rugby guy, went to rugby league. They paid an absolute shipload of money for him to come back. It's an absolute tanker full of money. He got over $1 million a year, Australian, to come back because he makes him the highest paid player in the game. That caused a lot of problems for people. But he seems to have sparked confidence within the side. Now, you put Skelton back into that second row with Frost, and you've got the great athleticism of Frost and this power of Skelton. So they score 3 mauling tries. And then you also get your selections right, and you absolutely ignite the back line from inside centre to fullback that seemed to just come alive with new energy and new pace and passing skills and counter-attacking skills. That is was the hallmark of Australian rugby for decades, and it just seems to have returned. So Joe Schmidt and his staff deserve massive credit, but so do the players. And this is the crazy part that doesn't add up with anything we've just said here. Australia's 9s and 10s, and they've stuck with Noah, so they stuck with him all the way through. He's not playing brilliantly. He's playing pretty average, as are the 9s. The 9s aren't Antoine Dupont, or Jamison Gibson Park. Our 9s they're doing their job, they're passing the ball, but they're not geniuses. And with an ordinary half pairing, we seem to have come alive from 12 out. And it's been a joy. It's been a joy. And to go on with it in Cardiff from what they did in the second half at Twickenham after being 15 points down or 14 points down, it's been fantastic. Now, it might be a bit of luck. They're going to show a lot more, or find a lot more difficulties against Scotland. But, there's hope for the first time in a long, long, long time. There's a lot of hope Australia can win at Murrayfield. And if they can, well, that's going to set up a great finish to the November series next week when they come to town. They play the Island at the Aviva. So without popping champagne corks, we're probably opening beers and not champagne corks, Stu. But it was nice. It was nice. I got an old mate from school I played with. He now lives in Germany, and he texted me. He said he was in a bar in Munich, yelling at a screen in English. He was the only one doing it, and there was just all around the world, Australians were screaming at screens. Just thank God we got something to. You talk about the expectations in Ireland. The expectations are just so low in Australia that finally the community had something to make them feel good about. So it was really nice, mate. It's not the end of the war, but it's nice to win a couple of battles.
Yeah, and if they could win on Sunday against Scotland, going into Dublin full of confidence, that'll be very intriguing. And the other side of things, Alan, just the last one, Steve Borthwick and England lose at Twickenham, yes, to the world champions. Another defeat, a lot of chat round there under quite a bit of pressure, fair enough?
Yeah, I think it's repetitive mistakes, isn't it, in the last three games for them. They're a whisk away from beating New Zealand, beating Australia, and a couple of errors against an incredibly powerful South African side last Saturday. So they could easily be 2 from 3 or even 3 from 3 if they tidied up some parts of their game. Defensively,
but now they're 6 defeats in a row, are they, or something like that, isn't it? After losing to New Zealand and so
it is, I think. But it's they're all tight games. I think they're not a million miles away from being a real force again. They've some incredible players, and
wasn't long ago they beat Ireland, to be fair.
Yeah, and they're up near the top. I think they need to get better in certain areas. Defensively, they look very much disjointed at times. Physically, they can match anyone and impose themselves, their physicality on anyone. So, yeah, it's a negative couple of weeks for them as regards to results. And I suppose when you're outside of that, I listened to some English pundits last week, and there were, maybe we think we're being a bit hard on Ireland. There's a lot of negative stuff being said about this English side and maybe the way they're hamstrung a little bit. There's a lot of good players there. There's a lot of young players that have come into that team in the last 2 years, and I think they're very close to clicking. Okay,
well, before we leave you, the predictions. Yes, Matt, I got that wrong last week. Yeah, I thought Argentina would win before you bounce in. So yeah, well, I said that. To you first. Ireland, Fiji. Who have we got? We have Scotland, Australia, Wales, South Africa. You go first, Matt, if you can remember what I just said.
Pretty straightforward, Stu, isn't it? It's the box by what could be a cricket score in Cardiff. Ireland definitely at the Aviva with a strong Fijian against a strong Fijian team, but I still think Ireland had enough. Murrayfield's the hard one. That's the tough one. Australia haven't got a good record there in recent years. Got to give away a lot of yellow cards and the Scots have always risen for the last decade against Australia. But so it's a really tough call. If Australia turn up and keep playing the way they have been, they'll win that game. The problem with saying they'll do that is they've only done it for 2 weeks out of 10 years. So it's a bit hard to guarantee it. But
another week in a row, Matt. Why not? Another week in a row.
Stu, I think for everyone out there, what I'm going to say about Australia the next 2 weeks, Australian rugby, not the Wallabies, Australian rugby needs wins. And for the survival of the game, I really hope Australia win. And that's not about going against Scotland or any of that sort of stuff. That's not in my... I just want to see the game in Australia survive. And I hope everyone around the world understands that the rugby as a global game is stronger with a good Australia. And right now the game's teetering. Financially, it's teetering. It's teetering in every single aspect. And I can't tell you how important it is that the Wallabies win one of these last 2 games. I think if they lose one game, okay, one understands. You know, these are good sides. Scotland and Ireland are good sides. But if Australia can win, come home with 3 out of 4, I don't think they'll beat Ireland. But if they can beat Scotland, I just think it's going to be such a boost for the game. And that will boost them into the Lions tour. And that Lions tour may very well be the thing that saves the game. So I hope Australia can win. I don't say that with a lot of confidence, but I'll go with the country I'm born in because we need it. That's it.
Because you need it. Simple as that, Alan.
It's Ireland, South Africa. Again, like Matt said, it's a tough one to call. It's a very close encounter, I think, in Murrayfield. Australia are full of confidence. I think the last couple of weeks will certainly benefit the squad, and they have that quality. If they can get a good platform up front,
it's huge for Gregor Townsend. Actually, they haven't won against the big teams in inverted commas. Not very often.
I think it's going to be a tall order for Australia to produce that emotion again. So I'm going to go with Scotland just about. I understand what Matt is coming from. They need. I think the English game is bigger than the Welsh win. I know they were very much dominant on Sunday and they were on the front foot, but winning against England was the big one that can turn this team and turn the mentality of the team. Very, very dangerous. And if they can, the question marks were up front about Australia and consistency there, and they're starting to get a bit of a hard-nosed edge there, a bit of power in there. Look, again, splitting hairs, I go for Scotland, Ireland and South Africa.
Brilliant stuff, men. And don't forget to join us on Saturday. Ireland take on Fiji. That's in Virgin Media 1 at the Aviva Stadium. Thanks, lads.